Damn, I'm gonna hate myself for this, but hey, unless you've been living under a rock, Total Drama is so back, giving us modern day Total Drama in the flesh. Beautiful, lovely, just Total Drama right there. Something me and many others have been begging for years. I mean, they already blueballed us once. This image is going to haunt me forever. And I'm very happy that they haven't done that again. Even with just 13 episodes, I'm still fine with any form of Total Drama. Come on, we're getting another season 2 with the same cast. I can't complain right now. It's been over 15 years since Total Drama Island first premiered. I'm a grown-ass man watching Total Drama in 2023, still excited to see what happens next. So clearly, I think you can tell that I enjoy Total Drama. Now to what I'm actually here to do. Relive mine and so many other people's childhoods in celebration for the new season release. I guess you can call this a ranking or a retrospective, as I'm going to go through each season, episode by episode, and just give a general review and ranking of each episode from start to finish, while giving my opinion as we go, because I need to find some place to shove my opinions in, you know how it goes. And as we sit here today, there are 8 relevant seasons of Total Drama up to this point before the 9th season comes up. I guess technically it's 6 seasons, if you want to be technical about it, but you're going to get 8 videos about this, so I'm going to call it 8 seasons because that's what it is. And if you couldn't tell by the title, thumbnail, everything else, it's Total Drama Island time. For those of you who need kind of a refresher or just decide to watch this video without having any idea what Total Drama is, first of all, if you do exist, welcome. Also, if you do exist, please take your ass to any streaming service or literally on YouTube, and please start watching, my friend. Now, back to a breakdown, because we're old now. We aren't the little kids watching Teletoon or Cartoon Network to get our fix of some Total Drama. The premise of this show is very much similar, if not a legit parody of Survivor. So, if you watch Survivor or any of my Survivor videos, you'll be a quick learner here. If not, listen up. We took 22 16-year-olds to this crummy old summer camp where they are split up into 2 teams. They will compete in challenges against each other. Winner is safe. Losers are forced to pick off one of their own. In the end, only one person will be left and is going to take home the grand prize of $100,000. Which, I mean, damn, I'm 20 and I know the things I do for 100K. Things I'm not allowed to admit on YouTube. So, you know it's going to get crazy for these 16-year-olds competing for 100K. And also, because this is an episode ranking, we need to break down what we are quantifying as an episode. And no, I'm not doing anything stupid. I'm keeping it really simple, actually. Episodes 1 through 26 are what I'm ranking here. So, no ranking for Total Drama Island, the special 27th episode. No real reason why I'm not doing it. I just think it feels nicer to do episodes 1 through 26, nice and smoothly. And the 27th episode is a lot more relevant to Total Drama Action than it is to Total Drama Island. And hopefully, while I do review these 26 episodes, this puts you guys down memory lane a little bit. My goal is to fill you in on the good, the bad, and everything in between when giving this review. I do hope this video was fun to watch for someone out there, as well as the other, 7 videos I'll be putting out. So just enjoy. And please leave your opinions in the comments. I love to see what everyone thinks about this show that has been such a big part of my childhood. And last thing, before we get into the big breakdown, it's shameless plug time. If you guys enjoy this or any of my videos, consider staying around. I mean, I got at least 7 more Total Drama videos and plenty of other videos on plenty of other topics coming soon. Or don't. Either way, you're still cool. Anyways, let's chit chat. It's time to break down where it all began on Camp Wawanakwa with Total Drama Island.
Mom and Dad, I'm doing fine. You guys are on my mind. I wanna be famous.
Yo, it's episode 1, Not So Happy Campers, part 1. This episode is as standard as you'd get from a reality TV show, or in this case, a reality TV show parody. It's an introduction to the series, breaking down the rules, which we've already gone over, and introducing us to the contestants, which we will get to know as this video goes on. Because, I mean, come on, you really want me to introduce all 22 campers in this one sitting? Beth, DJ, Gwen, Jeff, Lindsay, Heather, Duncan, Tyler, Harold, Trent, Bridget, Noah, Lashana, Katie, Sadie, Ezekiel, Cody, Eva, Owen, Courtney, Justin, and Izzy. There. You happy? We happy? We move. But honestly, that's pretty much what we get from this episode. It's an introduction. It does what an introduction does. Gives everyone a chance to at least talk, which is very rare for some people. Cough, cough, Justin. The most interesting thing that happens is Duncan smashing a cockroach with an axe, but it's not a bad thing in this case. This is unironically the most base total drama gets. Nothing special, just vibes. Now, I'm not about to put this high on the list or anything. I'm not crazy. If this was one of the better episodes of the show would not be as loved as it is today. But for what it is, an introduction, it does that very, very well. And has this level of deadpan humor that Total Drama only seems to capture in these first couple of episodes that just kind of tickle me in the right places. And that's why I love the show. So this first episode is going to rank fairly low, all things considered. But I still did enjoy it a lot, so that only says good things about the rest of the show. Episode 2, Not So Happy Campers, Part 2 will pick up right where Part 1 left off. Oh, wait. Did I forget to mention that these kids are about to jump off a 1,000-foot high cliff as their first challenge? Silly me, I must have forgot the show only wanted a 2-episode runtime because they are gonna die. Ain't no Part 3 coming away from this, folks. But this is a cartoon, so it's all fun and games for everyone. But the cliff jumps overall were pretty basic. You either jump or you don't, and you go down the escalator. Wait, why is there an escalator on the mountain? Whatever, I don't care, it's not canon. And if you don't jump, you're officially a chicken and also like to be alive. So whatever, you take it or leave it. The only truly interesting thing that happens is the start of the Lashana versus Heather rivalry, which ends in Heather getting thrown off the cliff. So that's very iconic of you, Lashana. Keep it up. The second part of this challenge is, now stay with me, a hot tub making challenge. What does that have to do with cliff jumping off a 1,000-foot high cliff? I mean, hell if I know, but I laugh every time because it just makes no sense and it's such a dramatic change from the start of the episode to the end. It's so funny. Either way, some stuff actually happens in this part, and by that I mean the Killer Bass, who is one of the teams in this season, have a complete meltdown and disaster, and obviously lose the challenge, and gotta vote off one of these people. It's looking like Courtney, who, if you didn't know, is a CIT, which I always thought when I was younger was like this amazing thing when I watched the show. Turns out it's not, which makes it so much funnier in retrospect that she kept bragging about being a CIT. But regardless, she's probably gonna go first because she got pink eye or something and also has common sense. A bad combination for this show if you want to make it far. That's until Ezekiel decides to open up his homeschool, nose-picking, sexist, string bean, beanie-wearing, probably racist mouth up, and gets himself voted out for being a misogynist. Good job, Ezekiel.
Can't say I'm shocked. I saw you picking your nose, dude. Not cool.
And overall, this episode was good. A touch better than episode 1 just because there was more going on. But again, there's nothing too special. And aside from Heather and Lashana fight, there's not much that makes this episode feel special or stand out to me. But it is total drama. It's early total drama, so I obviously enjoyed it. Oh, the big sleep is here. There's 5 minutes spent on this episode running and eating, but I promise you not a soul gives a damn. So let's move to the Awake-a-thon, the real challenge for the episode that's got a very simple premise. Don't fall asleep. And I love that premise. It makes the challenge the background so we can actually focus on the character dynamics and the main players for the season moving forward. A la Heather, who, if you haven't guessed by that badass entrance in episode 1, her mean girl style and attitude, or her fight with Lashana, she's gonna be the main villain of the season, and she is here to play the game, making an alliance with Lindsay and Beth because they are both trustworthy and strong allies that bring a lot to the table and create a big power trio. Nah, I'm playing. They're the two dumbest, so Heather can manipulate them. We'll get to that alliance later on. The other important connection to talk about is Gwen and Trent. These two made you-know-what eyes at each other from the jump, so you knew that they were going to be a couple where at least kind of flirty or whatever, but this just cements it, as they have cute moments here, but that isn't really what you're here for, so I'm going to move on, because overall, as an episode, I did enjoy it. My favorite of the first three, personally, although just barely. There were just funny moments throughout, and it just felt like people being people, and that really works in reality TV and in cartoons apparently. When it comes to actual plot, the Bass lose again because Duncan flopped and fell asleep on the can. Yes, I said can, I'm channeling my inner Canadian here. And Eva gets voted out because she got anger issues. More specifically, Heather stole her MP3 player and she lost her shit. So like, personally, I don't want to go to sleep with someone who could potentially kill me at night, so I approve this message by the Bass to vote her out. Work on your issues, girl. Bye-bye. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but even though I'm talking fairly highly on the first three episodes, they're still ranking in the bottom half and bottom third of this list as a whole. That's gonna change. Oh, baby, that's gonna change with episode 4, Dodgeball. If you couldn't tell by the damn title, we're playing Dodgeball today. And that's one thing I love about Total Drama Island. The challenges of the season are very basic for the most part. They have a simple goal, a simple start, and a simple conclusion. And that gives so much time to the character dynamics if the challenge is just a placeholder to have the campers doing something. But scratch that, I don't even care about the characters here. I care about dodging some balls. Because I just love everything about this challenge from beginning to end. Tyler just sucks ass, and it's honestly his highlight of the season for me. But again, the Bass are ass. See what I did there? Anyways, the Bass gotta do the unthinkable. Wake up Juvie Boy by putting a stick up his nose to lead a miraculous comeback to somehow take down the Gophers. But this is a cartoon, so you know damn well that Duncan is given certified badass status for the time being and mounts this comeback to tie the score at 2-2 in a best of 5. But yeah, that magic is about to run out because it's Owen. He's like the beast of this entire challenge versus some normal dude named Harold who looks like Napoleon Dynamite. And like, this isn't even funny. It's gonna end so poor. I am kidding, because Harold is a goddamn ballerina or something and he wins the game for the Bass. It's beautiful. Duncan, you're a has-been. It's Harold time. Harold is now the certified badass of the season, and that's that. You can't change my mind. Oh, and yeah, I guess on the Gopher side, Noah was the worst kind of person in middle school and gets sent home because, obviously. And if you couldn't tell by my tone, I love this episode. It's not my number one, but it's such an amazing episode just purely based on vibes, and I could watch this over and over and over again. We love vibes over here. If you ask me Total Drama Island, first thing I think of, I might just say this episode. And that's all you need to know about why it's so great. Now it's time to add the drama to Total Drama because holy hell, it gets crazy. So just stay with me here. It's a talent contest this episode, so all of our favorite campers get to show off what they're good at. Let's see their talents. Also, FYI, Cody sniffed Gwen, like right here. It's not important, but it happened, and I think we all need to acknowledge that. You're weird, dude. Anyways, Justin exists, and his talent is being hot. Go off, Justin. Yeah. DJ is like ribbon dancing or something, worth the effort, buddy. Trent decides to sing a basic white boy song because he is indeed a basic white boy, and that will lead us to Bridget, who I'm not going to show Bridget's talent because I'm saving your eyes from something that traumatized me as a kid, and I think traumatized a lot of other people as a kid. So just know it sucked because we're moving on now so we can get to the juicy bits of the episode. Because Heather sees what all of us see. Gwen and Trent totally like each other, like that high school couple on the yearbook type of shit. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, she needs to split that up because that's a threat to her. A very reasonable strategy for Heather. I'm sure she has a very reasonable way that she's going to handle this. So Heather steals Gwen's diary. She decides that she's not going to do the talent that she was going to do for the show and instead is going to read Gwen's diary out loud for the entire viewing audience to see that she has a crush on Trent. Okay, I'll be the one to say it. This was iconic. Yes, it's entirely messed up and like not cool on any level. But the amount of petty you have to go through with this, and spoiler alert, not get voted out later on in the episode, even though you single-handedly created the rivalry of the season while tanking the challenge at the same time, has no other word to go with it than iconic. Even though I already just kind of spoiled it, Harold is a certified badass, so you know when he was the last hope for the Bass, he was going to pull out the single greatest performance you've ever seen. And the Bass win. You'll never guess who goes home for the Gophers. It's Justin. Yeah, exactly, that's what I thought. This man doesn't talk the entire episode he goes home, and somehow was the scapegoat because Heather is just way too iconic to lose in episode 5. Are you kidding me? She is the drama. She was not going to get voted out. And yeah, I've been gushing over Heather a lot this episode, and it's not going to stop because I really do enjoy this episode. I do think the vote out is kind of dumb and not a very satisfying vote out in the end. And it's not an episode I did love watching from the start to finish, but it's Heather's coming out party, in my personal opinion, to start this season. And that alone has to boost this episode in some way for me. Damn it, we finally reached an episode I'm planning on spending as little time as possible talking about. Episode 6, The Sucky Outdoors. Spend one night out in the woods and make it back to camp by morning. Simple stuff here. Each team has their little encounters and their little struggles throughout. But our side plot of Katie and Sadie is what does it for me, and not in a good way. I know they have their stands out there somewhere, somehow, but I'm not one of them. I'm sorry, I can't even fake it for you guys. An entire episode focused on the two of them was never on my bucket list for this season. They were created to annoy you, and they have succeeded in annoying me, so I'm very happy to say that the Bass lost because of these two Candyland game piece wannabes, and Katie is voted out because who cares why Katie was voted out? It was going to be one of them. An episode that's kind of actively bad I can at least talk about, but this episode has nothing for me, and that's almost worse in my mind. So to the bottom of the list is where this one is going. This is the worst it gets this season. Aw, look, the whole cast is getting together at the bonfire. It's so cute. Oh shit, they're venting about their deepest traumas. This went south so fast. How did we get to group therapy for no reason on this season? And of course, after many, many nightmares for this cast probably, the show decides to exploit them for being on a TV show, and the challenge is now to face your worst fears head to head. And this challenge was really fun and creative. I enjoyed it. Not creative as in original because fear factor exists, but I very much enjoyed seeing everyone individually having to deal with their fears in very different ways, and it made for a fun watch throughout the episode. My favorite of all of those fears has to be Duncan's, whose fear is Celine Dion music store standees. You know, the usual. And I don't know, something about this scene with the dramatic uplifting music in the background has just engraved itself into my mind, and I love it so much for that. Aside from that, there's not too much else to it besides the contestants facing their fears, which isn't a bad thing. Lindsay and Sadie get bad haircuts, Trent leaves Gwen buried alive, Cody explodes, yeah, I'd say that kind of wraps it up to our conclusion, where Courtney is put into the Harold role, a chance to win it all at the last second for the Bass by jumping into green jelly. But she's no Harold, she wishes she was Harold, and the Bass lose. But instead of Courtney, it's poor Tyler that was the bad egg, and gets sent back to the coop because he couldn't get over his fear of chickens. And also he's not a main character, so it doesn't matter, we move. This was a solid episode, a challenge-led episode that sprinkles in its character dynamics throughout. You couldn't really ask for much more, except for maybe some more Heather and Lashana, please. And thank you. Episode 8, Up the Creek, was actually a lot better than I thought it was coming into this rewatch. This isn't some top tier episode or anything, but I kind of grouped this with The Sucky Outdoors as one of my least favorite episodes. Maybe even lower than The Sucky Outdoors. And I'm happy to report that it's not complete shit. It's time for a paddle to Boney Island. Oh god, that sucked. Anyways, there's two things here about Boney Island. It looks like a skull, and don't take anything from the island or you'll be cursed forever. God, man, I need to stop doing that. Oh, hey Beth, welcome back from the bathroom after missing that entire speech. I'm positive you won't break one of the 2 rules of Boney Island or anything. It's a race to Boney Island and back, and I enjoyed this episode a lot more because of the character dynamics between a couple of the showmances this season, where we get Gwen and Trent, with Cody in the middle trying his best to hook up with the hot goth chick, and Jeff and Bridget, with DJ in the middle being an actual wingman because we stand my man DJ. And those dynamics between those characters basically make this episode what it is, with Cody kinda technically saving Trent and Lindsay from quicksand, or DJ winning the challenge for the bass by literally becoming goddamn superhuman. Like, what the fuck was he? Can't even swim. But I'm not gonna pass by this episode without talking about that fucking thing. You have to know what I'm talking about. When Jeff gets a splinter and the entire cast is convinced that this man's leg is hanging on by a single vein or something. I don't know much about human anatomy, don't judge me, but regardless, I have no idea why this scene exists. I don't know why the people who made the show thought this was gonna be funny, even if that was their point. I just don't know what happened. It's never mentioned again and kind of pissed me off, and has no reason to piss me off, but it did. But like I said, the Bass win, and Izzy gets sent home, not by a vote, but because the literal RCMP finds her and chases her down, taking her out of set and out of this game. So yeah, she's in her silly era. Don't worry, Ollie, she's fine. Also, yeah, remember when I said Beth wouldn't possibly break one of the rules? I think it's the only rule about Boney Island. Yeah, she took this ugly-ass tiki doll from Boney Island, so I'm positive that won't have any consequences that'll curse you forever or anything. Anyways, yeah, again, I enjoyed this episode a lot more than I would have if I didn't do a full rewatch, but I can't lie, that stupid splinter bit completely tanks part of this episode for me, so it's good. One of the top half episodes we've talked about so far, but it can only go so high when my expectations were literally on the floor. Oh my God, I love this episode so much. Episode 9, Paintball Deer Hunter. And who would have guessed? They're playing a game of Paintball Deer Hunter. Half of each team are deer, and the other half are hunters. And the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Bag that dough. It's beautiful, beautiful vibes here. Come on. You all want to see Owen and DJ being way too into their respective roles and having a showdown. Literally anytime they're on the screen this episode, I'm enjoying myself. It's so stupid, but so goddamn good. And speaking of damn good, don't let me forget about Duncan and Courtney being tied up together with their antlers, and ooh, their chemistry is so good. I'll get to them later, trust me, but oh my God. I do need to give the main plot of this episode the spotlight because it tops everything else I've talked about so far. It's Heather versus Beth. Heather is pretty much a bitch and treats Beth and Lindsay as less than actual human beings, even though they're supposed to be in an alliance, but we all know Heather's just using them. And today was Beth's breaking point when she literally risked her life for a bag of chips. I'm being dramatic, let me live because it's good. And goes off on Heather after Heather gives her no real sympathy at all. And this is the first real moment Heather kind of gets her comeuppance. And yeah, I do love Heather. She's a great character, but as you will see in this ranking, I love me an episode where Heather gets some sweet, sweet karma this season. And that starts here and turns into complete chaos. At one point, there's 7 people here just firing their paintball guns at these girls, some of them being on their literal same team. So I think you can take a guess at who lost the challenge. But once again, even though everyone literally hates Heather, Cody casually got mauled by a bear, so he's on his deathbed, so they just decide to put him out of his misery and send him home. And by send him home, I mean Beth literally throws him into the ocean. What the hell, Beth? And I'll say it again. I adore this episode. It's not number 1. Damn it, there's so much good that comes to this episode that I literally can't name you anything bad that's happening here. And maybe that just speaks to how great Total Drama Island is that I love this episode so dearly. And I still have 3 episodes in the chamber left to talk about that I enjoyed even more than this. But oh man, don't get me wrong, it is so good. Oh my God, Total Drama is serving us good tonight because not only is episode 10 a cooking challenge, it's another amazing episode of the show because the campers have to cook us a 3-course meal and serve it to Chris. highest total score out of 10 wins. And this one right here, this is one of my favorite challenges of the entire franchise. It's so simple. They're just cooking, and that's it. But it's so delicious in more ways than one. I can't contain myself. Focusing on the two teams here, the Bass side has the three guys in Duncan, Jeff, and DJ just kind of messing with Harold the whole day because obviously the jocks have to pick on the nerds. This is 2007 silly. Down to the point where they stripped this man down to his pajama onesie and fed him his own underwear in a sandwich. Like, it's so diabolical. But it's so good at the same time. Duncan's just mad Harold's the true badass of the season, but that's none of my business. And then on to the Gopher side, once again has a bit more drama going on, which I will always eat up. And it's all surrounding by one Queen Heather, who first of all was really rocking that white apron, I'll tell you what, but on the other hand was once again being completely awful to everyone else and getting on her high horse because she called head chef, to the point where the entire team turns on her, and due to Trent getting a concussion, the upside down cake literally blowing off Heather's eyebrows, and Owen's bee attack, all of that led to the Gophers playing monkey in the middle with Heather's makeup bag, and Lindsay finally growing a backbone and is the final piece that locks Heather in the fridge. You cannot write this stuff, man. Well, I guess you can. They literally did. Whatever, you get the point. It's just perfect. Come on. But yeah, I don't know if y'all remember, but there's also a challenge going on. And despite the Bass being the definition of mid, the Gophers leave my boy Owen in charge to guide the food. Yeah, he ate the food. And of course, the Gophers lose once again. But oh shit. Heather is the center of the drama. The Gophers lose. You know the show's gonna find an excuse to not vote her out. Bingo. Beth's ugly cursed tiki is exposed, and the group band together to get rid of her because she is just not as relevant as Heather and kind of curse the team at the same time. Do I need to rephrase myself? This episode rocks. The challenge, the dynamics, the drama. I could take or leave the show finding their third person to shove in front and get voted out instead of Heather, but we do love Heather, so I can't complain that much. It's just a little nitpick. It's a great episode despite it, especially to have back-to-back with Paintball Deer Hunter. Just mwah. Let me tell you what, DJ-centered episodes are underrated, and episode 11, Who Can You Trust, is a massive, massive example of that. It's a trust-themed challenge. A blindfolded trust-themed challenge at that, because these campers have like no trust in each other. And once again, Total Drama Island, you know what they're doing with these challenges. So simple, yet so good. This episode was filled with just funny bits throughout. Like Heather literally exposed Gwen because Heather is...
You don't want to fall behind.
I don't even know what to say about this one. It's crazy. Lindsay like poisons Trent. Poor Trent. This guy is like a personal punching bag this season and nobody talks about it. Probably because he's a basic white boy, but we move. Because we got the side plot of the episode, the part I really enjoyed from beginning to end. DJ found this like bunny earlier in the season that he named Bunny. DJ, you're so lucky I like you because I was not about to let that slide, but regardless. So as a good pet owner would do, he lets his best friend Jeff be in charge of Bunny while he does all the dangerous challenges. And as you would imagine, worst case scenario goes down. Bunny gets eaten by a snake. Who gets eaten by a bird? Who gets eaten by a shark? Are you kidding me? At some point that can't be Jeff's fault, but regardless, Jeff is very much screwed because he just killed his best friend's pet. After coming up with a pretty poor excuse that somehow works to cover his own ass, it's time for some character development. And it's coming from former certified badass Duncan. After a few people take a trip to the ER, don't ask questions, Courtney spots Duncan bringing in a rabbit, which he uses to trick DJ into believing that Bunny came back, making DJ happy and very satisfied again. And like, yeah, it's really messed up if you think about it, but DJ is happy, slaps some cute music to it, and it's a really sweet and a really fun moment to watch. And it shows that Duncan isn't just a stereotypical juvie kid mohawk wearing bad boy. Even when he tries to keep up those appearances, he's more complex, and I love me some complex characters in any form of television, so sign me up for that. But also, there's like a challenge or whatever going on, and DJ comes in clutch for the Bass after getting rejuvenated with Bunny. but also messes it up for the Bass because he took off his blindfold during the challenge and disqualified himself. Silly, silly DJ. But it's a boring boot because Sadie gets voted out. You remembered Sadie was still here, didn't you? I'm just kidding, me neither. Moving on. I feel like I've said my piece on this episode. I really do enjoy it. It's solid, total drama, but it is one of the most forgettable episodes if you're not doing an in-depth rewatch like me, and doesn't have that quote-unquote iconic moment you see in many other episodes here, so I can't rank it as highly as much as I did praise it just now. You guys have been waiting for this episode. I know you guys have been waiting for this episode. Hell, I've been waiting for this episode, and we're here. Episode 12, Basic Straining. For those of you who get it, strap in. For those of you who don't, strap the fuck in. It's time to talk about my favorite storyline Total Drama has potentially ever told. The highs and lows of Courtney and Duncan. I haven't mentioned these two together too much to this point, but throughout the season so far, we've been given glimpses into the Duncan and Courtney dynamic, like in Phobia Factor or If You Can't Take the Heat, but this episode was the peak of it all, and it's so beautiful. There's very little about this episode that isn't about Duncan and Courtney, so let me run that down real quick. Chef is the host of a boot camp challenge. Duncan pisses off Chef. Duncan is sent to the boathouse. Now you're all caught up. Courtney takes a gander and a trip to the boathouse to visit Duncan, and their chemistry is off the charts. I cannot. And it's the scene in the boathouse, followed by the scene of Duncan converting Courtney to the dark side, and them stealing food from Chris and Chef is just the epitome of why I love these two together so much. And as all of you expected, it had to end in a kiss. A kiss where she just threw up 12 seconds ago, but it's a kiss nonetheless. And it's so satisfying, and the most invested I've been and will ever be in a showman's dynamic in any show, honestly. So even with the Bass losing the challenge, I couldn't really care less because we got what we wanted this whole time. Courtney got sent home. What? No. Wait, no. What just happened? No. Why would you do this? No, that's not how this was supposed to end. No, recount the votes. What the hell? That makes no sense. I'm so upset. We find out eventually that it was goddamn Harold who legit rigged the votes and didn't give a fuck who knew about it. And neither did production because it's good TV, so I'm honestly not complaining. I'm just being a bit dramatic here. But it's honestly a very satisfying ending to see how this ends, and now Harold finally gets his revenge on Duncan, who has pestered and basically bullied him all season by taking out his love interest in the most heartbreaking way possible. Just amazing. Because, yeah, this episode itself is amazing. I'm sure you've heard everyone's opinions on this episode and how great it is, and I completely agree with them. The storytelling, I believe, is unmatched. Objectively, I don't know how you can top this entire arc in that one single episode. Even though I've just praised this entire episode the whole time, it's not number one. This is my personal list. I have my number one at number one for a reason I will get to. But for this episode right here, it's obviously one of the best all time, and I'll never deny that. Despite Courtney being absolutely hosed here, it's so good. The next episode here, Extreme Torture, is very fun in its own right, but comparing to what we just watched, it obviously doesn't look that good, and probably gets forgotten about in the grand scheme of things, but I did think this was a very solid episode of the show. Basically, it's a bunch of quote-unquote extreme challenges that the campers have to compete in. Trent gets hurt again, yada yada. It's pretty much a staple at this point. But it's the side plot of the episode, or should I say the conclusion of this plot, that I really care about here. A love letter is discovered and anonymously written for a special girl at camp, where both Gwen and Bridget naturally think it's written for them, as they're the only ones who have love interests on the show at the moment, and are very determined to find out who is the poet. Their love interests are kind of tools, and we're not the ones that wrote this letter, obviously. Before we get to that conclusion of this little mystery here, I would be foolish not to talk about one of the single most iconic moments in Total Drama history. Not in terms of the fandom or whatever, but I just mean one of the most talked about things that the show has ever done. The final part of the extreme challenges leads to Heather not willing to accept losing to Harold, and decides to cut Harold loose, only to lose her top, and the rest is history. this single moment should be like in the Hall of Fame of TV show history, like cartoon history. These people at Fresh TV decided they were going to write a scene where Heather loses her top by accident, which ends up actually causing Heather's team to win the challenge. Like, it's kind of a little genius. And because the Bass lost, Harold is unable to keep himself afloat any longer and is finally voted out, despite proclaiming a couple things on his way out. He loved, he lost, and he saw boobies. The 3 keys in life, honestly. And he finally admits that it was him who was the writer of the letter, and that letter was for Lashana, forming potentially my favorite showmance in the entire show. Despite my love for Duncan and Courtney, obviously, these two are just as great, in a different way. But yeah, Harold is sent off, and I feel like Harold deserves some praise for how great he was this season. Obviously, he's the nerdy stereotype, but in the first half of this season, he was potentially the biggest star, or at least one of the biggest stars. And yeah, you kind of heard that right. We're only halfway done with this season. So let's slap a placement on this episode and move on to the second half of the season and hope we get some truly great episodes along the way. Okay, so like this is actually a filler episode, which is kind of crazy to think about with Total Drama. And what's even crazier is I don't actually dislike the episode at all, which might be controversial. I'm not sure what the public opinion is on this episode, but let's get into it, because the teams that we know are no more. And it's now a battle of the sexes, guys versus girls, in a food eating challenge for a reward thing, whatever. So nobody is going home. I can kind of skim through that part of the episode. The only source of important material for the story is that this shows how truly divided the girls are, and Bridget has all of a sudden become the swing in the middle, trying to keep this girl group together, but that will be very challenging with the people she has to deal with. And from eating beef testicles to grasshopper pizza to like literal flip-flops, the challenge doesn't really matter here, but I did think that a lot of it was pretty fun to watch, and I don't really know why. Like, I'm only truly going to talk about that girl drama this episode, but the challenge is the true reason I didn't hate the episode and actually kind of like it. But again, it's pretty much filler equivalent, so I'm not going to spend more time talking about it than I should. Just know, if you go back to watch this episode, if you don't focus on the strategy and just watch these people exist while doing a food challenge, you might just have a lot of fun watching. Episode 15 is the literal merge, and it's so unfortunate that I genuinely don't enjoy this episode because this could have been one of the biggest episodes of the season. Production decides for funsies that they're gonna bring back Eva and Izzy for some reason. Whatever, I have no idea why. And Eva, for some reason, is even more unbearable, being super pissed off at Bridget, which, like, they literally didn't have a single conversation before Eva was voted out the first time. So, Eva, you're on thin ice, buddy. Twitter is gonna come for your neck. Whatever, because not even the challenge was that fun. It's a fun concept in theory of say uncle, but the challenge itself was whatever. Just not memorable in any aspect. In the end, though, Lashana will take down the powerhouse of Eva for invincibility, and the entire cast hates Eva, so they take out Eva again. Like, I know I said the last episode was filler, but damn, this episode felt like filler, and still didn't even have a fun challenge. Just honestly skip this episode and tell everyone Izzy crawled back into the show. You aren't missing much, and this episode just kind of exists. Don't worry, the merge phase of this game will not be stale for long. Introducing Episode 16, Search and Do Not Destroy, the Gwen and Trent episode. Let's get into it. But of course, there's a challenge, so let me get that out of the way first. Campers are randomly chosen to go and grab a key from somewhere in the camp. Succeed, and you get to possibly open up a treasure chest and claim what's inside. And like I said, Gwen and Trent episode, I'm gonna be talking a lot about them, because they get a lot closer here, officially being shipped as Gwent. But, you know Heather? Yeah, she's not down for all of that lovey-dovey stuff, especially if it's Gwen getting some lovey-dovey, so she has a plan to divide the two. So, with the help of Lindsay, who's still her puppet here, she writes a fake letter to Gwen, pretending that she's Trent, to meet at the Dock of Shame at a certain time in the day, while at the same time manipulating Trent into thinking that Gwen was talking shit and using him, and then times everything up just perfectly to kiss him while Gwen watches in agony. I have a lot of thoughts on this because, spoiler alert, Gwen cries, Lashana finds out what happens, and sets the ball running to vote out Heather or Trent. And when Heather wins invincibility by pure luck, Trent is obviously the next boot to go, but I'll be the one to say it. Trent deserved it. I mean, come on, this is Heather we're talking about. How dense do you have to be to believe her over your love interest? And not only that, they literally kissed. I mean, yeah, Heather forced it, but Trent didn't stop it. The man is just as guilty, and in no way do I feel bad that he went home here. It actually pisses me off more than anything. Gwen deserves a lot better. But even after my rant, Gwen and Trent still forgave each other, and as the quote-unquote normal couple in the group, at least they are together and are going to stay together forever. Definitely. But overall, I mean, it's drama, and I love me some drama, so I love me this episode. Even with some portions kind of pissing me off, and literally only like 5 characters getting screen time this episode, I could definitely watch this episode over and over again. And with that, this episode has to rank pretty highly. Episode 17 is so sad to me because it's a game of hide and seek, and I love me some hide and seek. So it's kind of a shame that this episode is like a legit blur in my head. Obviously, they're playing hide and seek.
Not on me, dude!
But during all of this, the guys suddenly realize that they're kind of outnumbered 6-4. And tried to band together with an alliance to take down the girls, and might just need a miracle to pull this off. Luckily, on the girls' side is Heather, and she is not about to agree to a plan that she didn't create. Are you kidding me? We'll get to that a little later, because the challenge again was, I wish it was better, honestly. Izzy versus Chef was great, but aside from that, nothing else really notable happens, despite being such a great concept for a challenge. And then down to the vote, the girls are split between Duncan and Owen, while the guys decide to pile on to Bridget. And even though I still have no idea to this day if Jeff actually voted out Bridget, I guess he had to have, or else the votes don't add up. Whatever, it's stinky Bridget that gets sent home. This episode is just underwhelming to me, and that's the best thing I can say about it at this point. Let's talk about some more icons with this episode 18. That's Off the Chain. It's a bike race, but the campers are here to make their own bikes. Then the challenge decides to say fuck it and make absolutely zero sense. Like, think of the worst possible way to run a challenge. This challenge literally said hold my beer. So in the first round, you won't race on your own bike, you will race on someone else's bike. Instead of the people who finish first being the ones who move on, it's the person's bike who finishes first that actually moves on. In this instance, it's Heather, Lindsay, Duncan, and Owen's bikes who finish, so the 4 of them will race their own bikes in the final round. But trust me, because it gets so much worse here. Funny story, the winner of this race wins invincibility, and the last to cross the finish line is eliminated. What? Why the hell is that a challenge? The people who made shitty bikes are safe by default. But that's not even the worst offense, because let's get to the actual challenge itself and how it turns out. Owen and Duncan wipe out early, and Heather decides to use Lindsay and passes her at the last second to win invincibility, with Lindsay crossing second. So yeah, Owen is going home. That sucks, man, but he got last, so you gotta go home. Oh, what? The show is on some bullshit right now? Alright, I'll let the viewers know. Alright, guys, real funny story here. So, because technically the rules are last to cross the finish line is eliminated, and Owen and Duncan didn't cross the finish line, that makes Lindsay the last to cross the finish line, making her the one that gets eliminated. What? Complete bullshit, complete robbery, and why the hell is there any need for invincibility if the person in last is going home anyways? It's completely pointless, and Lindsay, the bike maker queen, is sent home here. Not before finally realizing that Heather sucks and has been playing her the entire time. Who would have thunk? And in this moment is the single most iconic moment to me in the entire show's history.
Like how you're a two-faced, backstabbing, lying little...
Simply iconic, simply magical, simply the only way to truly go out in a show, especially being robbed the way that Lindsay was just robbed. She deserved so much better. Getting her one shining moment at the end almost makes this worth it. But as an episode of the show, I loved it so much. Like, despite how much I trashed this format, it does suck. It was really fun to watch. To be fair though, aside from the Lindsay and Heather of it all, not much else happens besides Lashana and Izzy going who knows where on a bike. But that moment itself is so great that it can single-handedly pretty much carry this episode, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's iconic. On to Hook, Line, and Screamer, a horror-themed challenge where the campers are put into a real-life horror movie scenario here, as they are officially left alone on the island with an escaped psycho killer with a chainsaw and a hook. But it's obviously fake and put on by Chris and Chef, but regardless, was a lot of fun, and I very much enjoyed this challenge and its concept. The episode is pretty much just Gwen becoming the parent of the campers, and as you'd expect, nobody cares to listen to Gwen, all leaving the group one by one and getting picked off one by one, as you would imagine in a horror movie themed episode with some nice humor thrown throughout. In the end, it's just Duncan and Gwen left, and Duncan will actually take down Chef, who, if you haven't guessed, is just the psycho killer that's been running around and taking down everyone, and wins the challenge. But why are we cutting to Gwen? Who's that guy behind her? Why does that guy... Ooh, why does he not have a hand? Oh, shit. I think he might be the real escaped psycho killer with a chainsaw and a hook. But come on, this is Gwen. She whoops his ass because Gwen is a badass and we love Gwen. And this entire scene was just really entertaining to me. Like, the psycho killer was really funny. Gwen being over just everyone and everything was really funny. Just good stuff for the conclusion of the episode. Unfortunately, though, the episode ends in kind of a whimper here because Gwen wins immunity because, duh, she literally almost just got murdered and survived. But also, DJ gets eliminated because he was the only one who was eliminated from the challenge without even seeing the psycho killer, which is true, but why was that the criteria for the elimination this episode without any warning? And why is everyone just okay with this? DJ got completely robbed here, and the eliminations this season kind of do piss me off. More on that a lot later, but overall it's a solid episode I very much remember vividly as a child, to the point where I recreated the Owen scene when he faces the psycho killer and pushes Izzy. Instead of running away, I turned around and ran right into a tree. Those were good times though, so I always have a special place in my heart for this episode. Damn, we are really at the final 7. And it's unfortunate that this episode is pretty disappointing. Basically, they're all tasked to catch a wild animal randomly selected for them. I feel like I should have enjoyed this challenge more, but I just didn't, at all. The only thing I was really interested in was the Duncan and Heather dynamic, where Duncan actually talks strategy here and tries to play the game with Heather, giving her an option to work with him. This could only go so well, and by well I mean Heather ends up getting shot in the ass by Izzy's tranq dart while doing a deer cosplay. Yeah. It all ends to pretty much nothing, and Izzy is voted out officially for the last time. And I don't know, I just didn't really care about this episode, nor do I have a lot to say about this episode. It's just kind of a nothing for me, so I'm going to move on. Hear me out right here, right now. This is single-handedly the most underrated episode in the entire show from any season. I never hear anybody talk about this episode, and I absolutely adore it from the bottom of my heart. Let me get into why here. The episode is setting up the final 6 to exactly what the title of the episode says, a tri-armed triathlon. Basically, handcuffing each of the final 6 to one of the opposite sex, and the pairs were just perfect here, giving us some dynamics that we never really had on the show before. Aside from Heather and Owen being the comic relief of the episode, Gwen and Jeff and Lashana and Duncan were perfect pairs for this episode. Let's get into Duncan and Lashana first, where, once again, talk about character development, specifically with Duncan here. Lashana and Duncan are able to find some common ground because Courtney kind of snitched and told Lashana about the whole bunny situation back, all the way back in episode 11, showing that Duncan is actually human, and he finally is able to open up to Lashana, and their dynamic is just such a rare one in this show throughout the entire series, and I need more Duncan and Lashana interaction. And then throughout this episode, they are just so good. They made me laugh, and I was just glued to the screen the whole time they were there. Icons, the both of them. And then we have Gwen and Jeff in a situation where for some reason Gwen just hates Jeff. That honestly makes absolutely no sense. What did this guy do to you? But whatever. They just needed an excuse to make a better story for the episode. I'm not complaining though, because Gwen just being really frustrated is like, I don't know, it's a little weird because just let loose for at least a second. Like, goddamn, Gwen. Jeff is able to finally get through to Gwen and let her finally let loose and make these two really good friends by the end of it, which makes zero sense why this dynamic is never mentioned again in the show's history. Like, these two are barely seen on screen together ever again. To the actual challenge and the episode, each team kind of does their job and wins one of the 3 Tri-Arm Triathlon episode challenges, which means everyone is up for elimination. And Jeff is the one that gets taken out because he's too nice, I guess, so he's a threat. Sure, whatever, we say goodbye to Jeff. Not before a cute little photo ends between Jeff and Gwen. Just a really nice way to end off the episode. And as a whole, like I said, I love this episode. I feel like everyone got a chance to star and a chance to shine at least a little bit this episode. And these are all likable characters at the end, so I want to get to know each of them as much as possible. And I do think this episode did it nearly to perfection, which not many people talk about, like I've said before. So yeah, it's an amazing episode and it deserves a lot of credit. Episode 22, Hout Campshire, is a special episode. We're placing no focus on the final 5, and instead headed to show off all the campers who were already voted out of the game, what they're all up to. Turns out they're living at like this resort thing, so that's cute and fun. And this episode and that's kind of the perfect way to describe this episode, cute and fun. Not a ton of substance aside from Courtney hunting down Harold all episode for rigging the votes against her. And Izzy and Noah were just both people who I thought were a lot better in this one episode than in their time on the show. Both looking to have a lot of potential in future seasons, which they both will definitely live up to. Let's get into the real tea here. The actual part that matters. Chris thinks he's so funny by adding a big twist. The eliminated players are going to be the ones to vote the next player out, eliminating one of the final 5. And of course, they decide for the worst possible outcome, as all of these stupid dumb idiots accidentally vote out Lashana. Lashana! What the hell did she ever do? This is the most tragic boot in this entire show. Lashana should have won. I'm so mad. The only excuse I can give myself is that they didn't have a legit reason of how they were going to get Lashana voted out in the show, so they created the most insane and obnoxious ending possible to have an excuse to make her lose, which is very depressing and just such a sad end to the episode. But I hate that I enjoyed the rest of the episode despite that. Just seeing all the eliminated characters existing again and not being completely unlikable besides that ending was really great. But watch yourself if you ever fuck with Lashana again, because I will fuck with you. Episode 23 just like doesn't feel real. Like, this episode has to be a parody or like a dream of the show, and I have no idea how to feel about it. It does not relate to any other episode in the season, more like any other episode in the show. Like, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and not in a good way. Do you really care about the final 4 getting drifted off and fighting literal dinosaurs? This can't be real. What the hell am I watching? Everything is just extra cartoony, which feels normal in a literal cartoon, but in this specific cartoon, it's so out of place. All I really care about here is my best buddy, Mr. Coconut, whose elimination got me more emotional than 85% of these goddamn eliminations this season. Do better, Total Drama. Do better. This episode is the epitome of filler, and I'm not wasting any more time on it. Now we're at the official Final 4 episode, Are We There, Yeti? And hey, Chef is the host of this episode again, as he decides to strand the final 4 in the woods, splitting them into duos, girls versus guys, first back to camp, wins invincibility, blah blah blah. Honestly, it's the dynamics between the final 4 that I've really enjoyed this episode. I will say, they still had some kind of like leftover cartoony bits from the last episode here. Like, they literally had like a montage of trapping each other like they were Tom and Jerry. Like, who do they think they are? But their activities of fun turn into a run with Sasquatch and Aqua and are forced to spend the night together. But men are dumb, and Heather and Gwen take advantage of them and take off with all of their stuff. And it's gonna be an easy peasy lemon squeezy win until we summon Owen's cartoon fat person powers. For those of you who don't know, cartoon fat person powers are when a larger figured person in a cartoon gets a whiff of that magical smell of some yummy, yummy food and turns into an Olympian, in which Owen, in this case, smells some yummy sticky buns, and bursts to the finish line, only to take out the sticky buns instead of the finish line, and the girls still win. And they took out my boy Duncan, losing the game because of sticky buns. Sticky buns, I tell ya, sticky buns. And honestly, a really fine ending for Duncan, who was definitely one of the better characters of the season, and by far my favorite character when I was younger. I was a Duncan stan, so I got beefed with Owen for being the reason Duncan lost. Overall, as an episode, fine. And I don't know what to tell you. There's nothing entirely special here, but it's a solid episode that I can find enjoyment in watching every time I turn it on. Alright, besties. You guys have seen the list, and that number 1 spot has been empty for 24 episodes in a row. That's going to end now, because episode 25, I Triple Dog Dare You, is my personal peak of Total Drama Island. And no, this doesn't have the best storytelling or anything like that. And I'm sure some people will disagree with me on this, but this episode is the conclusion to a season-long storyline, the downfall of Heather. And I love me a good downfall. The final 3 are set to play a good old game of spin the bottle, but like the dare kind, not the other kind. Basically forced to do some really nasty dares set up by the eliminated contestants. And again, I enjoyed every single dare here. Even every little bit of this episode, from Heather and Gwen throwing dares back and forth at each other, to Owen just doing every single dare possible, to Chris and Chef's little side bet with each other to not puke. It's all so good and so entertaining, which will eventually lead to Owen and Gwen teaming up against Heather, leading to a good old montage of Heather getting shit on with dare after dare. And that'll lead us to the coronation of Heather's story, with Lindsay's funny, small, tiny little dare being to shave your head. And you know what that means. Either Heather is finally eliminated from the show or has a bald head. That's what I call a win-win right now. You know what? We're eating good this episode because we get both. Yeah, she's bald now and gets eliminated due to technicality because she didn't willingly let Chef shave her head. And we are into the final 2. Yes, I'm so in love with this episode. If you couldn't tell, I love Heather. But if you also couldn't tell, when Heather gets her karma this season, it's some of the most satisfying scenes in the entire show. And for her torment this entire season to come flying back right at her in this one fell swoop is so satisfying, and is the exact reason this is my favorite episode of the season. We were all waiting for Lindsay's karma on Heather, and for Lindsay's dare to be the one that takes down Heather. It's beautiful, but we do have a final 2 now, and one more episode to rank, so let's get a move on and wrap up this ranking. Here we are, episode 26, the very last episode. Really. No, actually, that's the title of the episode. It's the very last episode, really. And it's Owen versus Gwen, setting themselves up for a final challenge. Winner takes all. And the challenge itself was fine, but what I really enjoyed about this episode was honestly the past contestants here, more than the actual final 2. Like Duncan and Courtney together, or Heather just sabotaging the challenge the whole time, because what else would you expect from Heather? We can skip through most of the episode and head to the ending, where it's Gwen getting ready to win until Izzy realizes one very important fact. Owen has cartoon fat person powers, which, as you all know, trump all. And boom, brownies are the key to victory for Owen, winning the first season of Total Drama Island, baby. Or did he? Well, for those of you who don't know or aren't aware, Owen didn't actually win Total Drama Island. Technically, nobody did. That's the same with every season of the show thus far. With Total Drama as a show, they do not have a canonical winner of the show. The finalists are considered finalists, and both have a specific ending where each of the finalists wins based on what part of the world you aired in. In Canada and America, Owen could have won the show, while in the UK and Australia, Gwen could have won this show. And that varies from season to season, but there is no quote-unquote official winner of the show, so the fandom usually just claims the finalists as winners just to keep things consistent. That's pretty much the season, and let's get to the ending, wrap things up. And that's a season. 26 episodes, ranked from 26 down to 1. And I guess I'll take this time at the end to talk about my overall thoughts on this season as a whole, because yeah, this season is amazing. It's one of the more iconic 26 episodes of television in my childhood. These episodes are stapled into my mind, where I'm not joking, I probably watched through these episodes 100 times throughout. And on this rewatch, if anything, my opinion is even higher on the show. The show, it took itself a little more serious here, not as crazy or wacky aside from a couple episodes, and it's focused so much more on the characters and the character moments. The challenges are there, but simple, which gives more opportunity to learn more about these 22 people that we all know and love. This is the start, and I'm positive Total Drama would not live in people's minds so positively if Total Drama Island wasn't as great as it was. Is it my favorite season? I'm not sure. That'll have to wait, and you'll have to wait to find out. But it's an absolute gem and one of the greatest shows that existed in my childhood. And that's going to do it. Obviously, I'm going to have episode rankings for every other season of the show, so get ready for some Total Drama action next. And aside from that, I have plenty of other shows that are underway. We got a long off season coming, so this is basically going to take up a bulk of it. But once we get into Survivor season, Big Brother season, the Challenge season, all of these videos that I've posted in the past are going to be coming back, so wait for that. And if you made it to the very, very end of this video, once again, thank you. You're the best. I'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.